Some atheists argue that the universe is a brute fact. The universe just exists, they say, and that's that. It has no explanation at all. This was Bertrand Russell's position in his classic 1948 BBC radio debate with Father Frederick Copleston. How can we respond?
You could respond by building a coherent case against the proposition. You could detail, point by point, how the universe simply could not be a brute fact. But I know you, Broussard. That's not how you work.
Fundamentally, atheists who hold to this position are denying the principle of sufficient reason, which states that everything that is has a sufficient reason for existing.
And there we are, from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. The principle of sufficient reason is a powerful and controversial philosophical principle stipulating that everything must have a reason, cause, or ground. So, Broussard is attempting to resolve a controversy, the universe as brute fact, with a principle that is itself controversial, sufficient reason. This only transfers the controversy rather than resolving it, which is something a theist who believes himself having all the answers cannot afford.
But as some philosophers point out, the denial of the principle of sufficient reason is at the same time a denial of rational argumentation, including any argument for brute facts.
I'd like to know who some philosophers are and how they frame their arguments. I trust that you will be presenting these.
Consider how, when we accept the conclusion Socrates is mortal, we do so based on the premises all men are mortal and Socrates is a man. In other words, we recognize the conclusion as rational because the premises are true and the argument is logically valid. But if brute facts are possible and the principle of sufficient reason is false, well, then it follows that our conclusion, Socrates is mortal, might have nothing to do with the truth of the premises and their logical structure.
I thought not. Consider, Broussard, how you might be a jackass. Brute facts have nothing to do with the form of arguments, and you damned well know it. Brute facts address the contingency of truth values. If a statement, or condition the statement describes, is true without a path of reasoning leading to that truth, that statement or condition is a brute fact. The category syllogism you present is something entirely different. Moreover, you know that.
Similarly, the conclusion, things like the universe can exist without a reason for their existence, might itself be a brute fact and have no connection to truth or logic. But if that's the case, well then we would have no reason to accept it as true.
Now you're playing with some weird mutation of the deflationary model of truth, which is less coherent than the deflationary model itself. If you need to play weird word games to make your point, you might consider that you are being dishonest.
So the denial of the principle of sufficient reason undercuts any ground one might have for doubting the principle, as in Russell's example of the universe. Therefore, the position is self-refuting and thus unreasonable.
Actually, the denial of the principle of sufficient reason is vital to constructing a coherent system of reasoning. Remember the definition presented earlier in this response. Everything must have a reason, cause, or ground. So, the principle of sufficient reason resembles an attempt to define every English word using English words and only English words. Now, define the English word the. You will quickly find that you cannot do so without employing the English word the. In other words, every definition of the is circular, meaning that the cannot be defined in English. Systems of reasoning work the same way. Trying to reason one's way to everything results in circularity and the inability to reason one's way to anything. This is why useful logical systems include true statements that are accepted without proof or explanation. These statements are called axioms. But brute facts are also accepted without proof or explanation. Brute facts are, in fact, equivalent to axioms.
As to what the explanation of the universe is, we'll have to save that for another time.
Not so fast, jackass. Your explanation for the universe is your God, and I endured enough Catholic schooling to know that your God is, was, and always will be, which makes it, guess what? A brute fact. You have to save it for another time to attempt to hide the fact that your argument here is nothing more than so much hot air.
If you want to learn more about this topic and others like it, check out our website at Catholic.com. For Catholic Answers, I'm Karlo Broussard. Thanks for watching.
If you want to learn more about this topic and others like it, take a decent course in logic. Read a book on logic that doesn't have an imprimatur. In short, ignore this jerk. For Vox Rationis, I am Diana Clarion, and I thank you for watching.